It was a party to remember. Kydos, Minetrian, Tiefling Sorcerer entertained the room with bursts of flame, the flicker gleaming in his yellow snake-like eyes. In another light, Kydos could have seemed infernal, horns spiraling out of his forehead, purple hair waving like serpents. After most of the other patrons had stumbled home, Kydos was still going strong. He stood on a table, opalescent armor still gleaming, and along with Damien relayed the tale of Wave Echo Cave. The two bounced off each other, equally drunk on fine wine and themselves. Ultimately, it was a story that would be repeated in song by bards of the North for years to come. As the sun rose, he stood alone in the great room of the Stonehill Inn. Life of the party, he cursed bitterly. It felt like no matter how hard he drank, he couldn't scratch the itch that was what he did not know. There was so much work. Not even hours of imbibing every liquid available could give him respite. There were so many things he longed to snap into place into the giant unfolding puzzle of events. This town was nice enough. It was fun when they weren't terrified of you. He could come to like this place. But it would never be home. He left for Neverwinter immediately, flying down the dusty road on the back of a horse that was not his. It would be the next evening before he slept in a crude camp near some merchants on the high road, cloak pulled tight. The next day he would ride into Neverwinter's gate around midday, his hood disguising his face because no matter how many good deeds he accomplished, there were those who would never accept him. There were those that would believe that evil in appearance meant evil in actions and could not be convinced otherwise, even when evidence was placed plain as day directly in front of their faces. And so it happened that many of these types also happened to be members of the city guard. Luckily, he passed through the city gates unmolested. While most visitors to the city would first find accommodations, Kydos was on fire. Knowing there was no library of note within the city and the Hall of Knowledge was still being rebuilt, it would be up to instinct and gold to track down what he needed. Questions burned in his soul. What demon curse led to his infernal appearance? What does the appearance of a white dragon on Icespire Peak mean? Could he possibly learn how to power the Forge of Spells? He had a nose for knowledge, seemingly able to find what he needed against staggering odds. He visited 5 different book or curiosity shops in just the first afternoon. By the time he was done, there wasn't a shelf in Neverwinter he hadn't perused. It took putting the word out. It always seemed that once someone knew what you desired, it would come to you, with a price, of course. And this is how it happened. Kydos spent the first week poring over every collection he could get access to. Sometimes he had to pay his way in. Other times he used more mystical methods. He spent his nights at the Moonstone Mask, reading what books he could find. It wasn't cheap, but he managed to avoid utilizing its more expensive personal services. He did enjoy the magic masks worn by all employees and was charmed by Lizette Sheldar, owner of the mask. On the other hand, he avoided the suspicious stare of another patron of the mask, General Sabine, Mintarn General of Neverwinter's military forces. It had been exactly 10 days since he arrived in the sprawling, noise-filled city when he heard there was someone who wished to speak to him. Someone important. He rushed through the night streets, robes whooshing around his body. He hurled himself past what few people were in the streets at this hour, like obstacles to his goal. The city's street lanterns burned brightly. This was what he had hoped would happen. It was all part of his plan to find out the answers to questions almost nobody dared ask. He wanted information about demons, and Jarl Axel Bonray, Drow mercenary and leader of the Bregendareth Mercenary Company, could answer. Someone with the power of Jarl Axel didn't see anybody about anything without it also being of benefit to him. Kydos had been running the equations through his head. This transaction wouldn't be about money. It was going to be about information. The sorcerer was whisked into chambers concealed in magical darkness. He was blindfolded, loaded into a carriage, and by his best estimate traveled a mile or so from the warehouse on the docks where he met his contact in Hanover, a chiseled, black-eyed, cursed nocturnal man simply known as Crypt. He very much looked the part, black vest concealing black leather armor. If the man were to crack a smile, baby would start crying. Ushered out of the carriage, he was unmasked and found himself in a courtyard of an opulent manor. Walking briskly through the din was the legend in person. Kydos composed himself as he was warmly welcomed by the impeccably dressed merchant dark elf, looking good while doing bad. Kydos respected that, and was also just a bit starstruck by the whole ordeal. "Demons, eh?" asked Jarl Axel, sizing up the tiefling as they walked together through the courtyard toward the manor. Kydos was offered tea and hors d'oeuvres by a stoic servant. Having just been responsible for dispensing one of Lolth's chosen, he politely passed. His decline was noted by the drow. "We all have them," replied Kydos. "You have to get to know someone to understand their particular variety, and the Underdark especially. Though, not everyone wears theirs on their face, young tiefling." Was it an insult? With Jarl Axel, one could hardly differentiate them from observation. "I understand that you have some questions." Jarl Axel said it as a fact, not an inquiry. "I do." Kydos decided to keep his words close so as not to say too much. "Well, you should probably ask them." Jarl Axel wouldn't provide answers for free, and Kydos knew it. "I've learned that my bloodline is cursed to appear demonic because of the heroic actions of one of my ancestors, a cleric of Selune named Kai Minetrian. I want to know of the demon responsible for the curse. Provide me the circumstances of the curse, and I may be able to locate more information from it. Being from the Underdark, demons aren't unfamiliar, as I'm sure they are not unfamiliar to you. Is that all?" Did that last part conceal a suppressed laugh? Knowing that Jarl Axel is no resource for dragons, and trying to avoid discussing the Forge of Spells with the drow, Kydos nodded. Jarl Axel leaned in closer, like a predator springing its trap. "I understand that you are one of the heroes who has liberated Wave Echo Cave from its evil denizens. I know that Wave Echo Mine contains a powerful instrument, the Forge of Spells." Kydos felt a lump grow in his throat. This was what he was afraid of, but steadied himself against the onslaught. Jarl Axel gave Kydos his proposal, not an unreasonable one. Kydos agreed to share it with whom it was intended. And just like that, the drow dandy stood up, adjusted his waistcoat, and excused himself to attend to other business. Kydos was escorted back to the carriage, a large, intimidating vehicle. Again, he was blindfolded and transported away from the secret manor. The next thing he would see, when the head covering was removed, was the snarling face of Crypt. Kydos still had other questions. Through a messenger, he learned of a trio of books that had arrived to the city, purchased from a dealer of antiquities. The books dealt specifically with dragons. Kydos purchased them immediately and set about devouring their contents. He was yet frustrated at his inability to locate any information about the Forge of Spells. That research clearly would need to extend beyond the borders of Neverwinter. It would have to wait, as he was summoned to the Hall of Justice by none other than Lord Protector Neverember. Kydos arrived at the giant hall. Unimpressed by the pageantry, he was honored alongside Dwayne the Barbarian and Lord Aldrich Valerian of Mithril Hall for liberating Wave Echo Cave and protecting the area surrounding Phandalin. This threat being eliminated was good press for the Lord Protector, furthering his stronghold on power in Neverwinter. But Kydos noticed that familiar scorn in the eyes of many of his guards. "No matter what I do," thought the red-skinned sorcerer. He soon joined Lord Sildar Hallwinter and Dwayne back south to Phandalin, excitedly relaying all of the new information he had acquired while in the city.
Upon returning to Phandalin, he was given a prize from Gundren Rockseeker, found deep within the chasm of Wave Echo Cave, the Pearl of Power.
The burning in his soul had been quieted for now, but it would flare up again. Of this, he was confident.